again. She's just another lost soul, about to be mine again. Giver, meet the receiver, and it's beyond your control. Will you ever meet again? Heaven, from up in heaven, who ever landed on home. As a little child she was taken, and then forsaken. You will remember it all, and it blew your mind again. Heaven lies beyond this portal. Take the word of one immortal. Give your soul to me for eternity. Release your life to begin another time with her. And your grave with me. There's another way. Release your life. Take your place inside the fire with her. Never, now and forever. You're just another lost soul, about to be mine again. See her, you'll never figure. You must surrender it all in your life to me again. Fire for your desire, as she begins to turn cold. Run up on no time, you will shiver. Till you deliver, you will remember it all and into your mind again. Ten lies beyond this portal. Take the word of one immortal. Give your soul to me for eternity. Release your life to begin another time with her. And your grave with me. There's another way. Release your life. Take your place inside the fire with her. Give your soul to me for eternity. Release your life to begin another time with her. And your grave with me. There's another way. Release your life. Take your place inside the fire with her. As a little child she was taken, and then forsaken. You will remember it all and live in your mind again.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, rabies and mental men. Let's get rid of this because we are not sharing that anymore. Good evening. This is the second live of the day. Sorry, I'm just putting one of my books away. Second live of the day. We are going to be taking another look at the very odd behaviours and very concerning behaviours and language of predators, abusers, and psychopaths. Now, before I go any further, I'm just going to, for those of you who may not have watched any of my videos before or know what I do, I'm basically a behaviour analyst. I am working on getting qualified in statement analysis, but I've been into body language for a number of years, 30 odd years. But I've only really started using my body language knowledge the last 5 or 6 years properly. And when I combine it with statement analysis, it tells me everything I need to know about a person, their personality, their mood, their state of mind. The language tells you an awful lot. I use body language as a guide. If I tend to look at body language as like a general practitioner where it can tell you what may be going on, and the reasons you can guess as to why certain body movements are being made, or postures or adapters or whatever. But with statement analysis, I call that the surgeon, because the statement analysis is where you get to the real truth of the matter. Because people's language, it's a very, very unnatural thing to do, to lie to people. It's not something our brains were designed to do. We weren't meant to lie to each other, deceive each other. So like the behavior panel says, like Eric Hunley will tell you, Logan Portenier from Observe, Joe Navarro, Desmond Morris, Greg Hartley, Chase Hughes specifically. I think Chase Hughes is one of the best behavior experts on the planet. And it's just my opinion, but you can't deny he's extremely good at what he does. And I've learned an awful lot from him over the years. And I've taken an awful lot of notice of Greg Hartley as well. Probably because they're both military, and I come from a military family. I've got special forces in my family, in World War II as well. But it's not just that. It's the fact that out of the four of them, I think those two are the ones that have the most understanding of human behavior, and they are extremely good at it. All of them are. All the behavior panel are good at what they do. I just don't agree with some of what they've said about certain guilty parties in the past. But that does not mean to say that I don't respect them and I don't listen to them, because I absolutely do. They are fantastic at behavior. But I read countless books on behavior, from Desmond Morris, Joe Navarro, to any of the behavior panel. Chase Hughes, I've got 3 of his books. I've got one of Greg Hartley's. I've got one of Scott's somewhere. I haven't read it yet. I've got one of Mark Bowden's. I have 4 Desmond Morris books that I own. I own Joe Navarro's What Everybody Is Saying. And I'm willing to bet that I'm the only person, probably the only person on the planet with this kind of knowledge of human behavior that has actually spent time around some really dodgy people, having spent a little bit of time in the company of His Majesty's hotel personnel. Yes, I'm not proud of it, but I spent 2 years in jail, and all I did was study books, neurology, psychology, body language. Couldn't find anything on statement analysis in prison library. And I spent all my time when I was out of my cell just observing other people's behaviors and recognizing who the psychopaths were. And I would watch them, listen to how they speak, what they say, how they use their bodies to interact with people, how they can use their bodies and their facial expressions to intimidate people. And as we all know from now, if anybody that watches the behavior panel will know that psychopaths get a very big hit of dopamine when they are causing some kind of harm, whether it be physical, emotional, actual, any type of harm to another human being gives them pleasure. Those people just aren't wired right. And as Scott Rouse tells us time and time again, what are all psychopaths? All psychopaths are narcissists. They all are extreme narcissists. But not all narcissists are psychopaths. So I will keep driving that point home, just as Scott does, because it is an important point to remember. Just because you see narcissism in somebody's behavior doesn't automatically mean they're a psychopath. However, I'm going to show you some footage here. courtesy of Jay Scott from Guilty of Crime, from X. And big shout out to Jay Scott, Guilty of Crime on YouTube. Go and see her stuff. She does some brilliant work, especially on the Stephen Stearns, Madeline Soto, Jen Soto case. She has been following that from day one, and she probably knows more about that case than any other person on the planet. And on top of that, she's a great girl, and I've got a lot of time for Jay, and I've got a lot of time for her channel. So I would urge you to go and have a look, and just drop a like or subscribe to her channel, because she does some really great stuff, and she's one of the very, very few true crime channels that I actually follow, because there are a lot of true crime channels out there. I'm not a true crime channel. I'm a behavior channel. This is all I do. I only do behavior and linguistics. I don't do anything else. I've got opinions, and the odd apology when it's needed when I say stupid things. But I have autism, so if I say something stupid, don't take it personally. It's not meant personally. It's just my humor can get me into trouble sometimes. So I have to be slightly more self-conscious when I'm doing lives these days. So first of all, I'm going to show you I want to show you a little bit of footage that Jay Scott from Guilty of Crime shared on X. And I want you to watch this. What do you think is going on? I want you to put in the chat what you think is going on here. All right. So here we go. Can you all see it? No, you can't. Right. Let's add it to stage. There we go. I'm getting there, slowly but surely. I'm getting there. Okay, so let's have a look at this, because this is very, very telling. But I want you to have a look at this closely, and just in the comments, tell me what you're seeing. Have a look again. Okay. Thank you to Jay Scott for sharing that. I found that very, very interesting. So I want to know what you guys see. What do you see in that little video? Because I know what I'm seeing. I have actually watched behavior firsthand of people behaving like this. And I believe he's hearing voices, which is indicative of schizophrenia. He looks like he's only got one shoe on. So, I mean, automatically, straight away, that behavior is concerning. So when I see somebody behave like this, it concerns me if I don't know them. Just watch what he does here. Puts this up, stops, then go, what? And then what's he doing? What does he look like he's doing? Well, it actually looks like he can hear something, doesn't it? It looks like he's just stopped, heard something, and you can see a bit of confusion in his face. What's just a bit of confusion? I can't blow this up anymore, I don't think. No, I can't. What's the confusion? See his brow go down there in confusion? He can hear something. He can absolutely hear something. Now, what it is he may be hearing, we can only guess, unless he's going to be honest and tell us, which I doubt very much. We don't really need the sound. He can hear something. And I'll tell you what I think he can hear. I think he can hear voices. That's what I think he's hearing. And he seems to have that look of confusion because he doesn't know where the voice is coming from. Now, schizophrenic people hear voices, and they don't always hear just one voice. It can be multiple voices and multiple personalities, multiple genders. I mean, schizophrenics have known to have, 2 or 3 personalities that are female and the rest are all male. They may only have 2 personalities. Schizophrenia is really, really not my cup of tea. It's not the area of my expertise. But considering what he's just been found guilty and sentenced to, well, at least been found guilty of and pled guilty to, he's pled guilty to stabbing 4 people to death at Idaho State University, known as the Idaho 4. And I'm going to share with you some other behaviors. But first of all, I want to just cover this. I'm going to stop sharing this because we don't need it on the screen. You can all find that. Look for Jay Scott on X. She posts some really great stuff on X as well. So go and give her a look. She really deserves to have a little bit of backup because she does great work. Same as Mr. E's Crime Cast. We've got Mr. E, Mrs. E, Aunt E, the beautiful Aunt E. They do fantastic work bringing missing people to the public eye. And they work tirelessly doing it as well. So I would ask anybody to go and give them a look as well. Drop them a like, even subscribe to them as well. They're well worth it. And they're really, really nice people. Same as Jay Scott. They're just fantastic people. And they're really funny. When they want to be, they're absolutely hilarious. And I love them to bits. I've got a lot of time for them. Now, well, I've been spending a lot of time on the Jack and Lily thing. I've been watching the updates because I'm sitting here, and I'll say it. It's my opinion only, but I believe that both Malaya Brooks Murray and Daniel Martel know exactly what happened to those 2 poor kids, and I don't understand why they're not yet locked up. They shouldn't be walking the streets, in my opinion. They should both be in silver bracelets and having their head banged off the door of the van a few times before they're actually shoved in. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but too late. People that do horrible things to children don't deserve to be on this planet. And if somebody deems fit that they do deserve to carry on breathing, then I think they should be subjected to the same treatment that they subjected the children to on a daily basis until they decide to Jeffrey Epstein themselves, because it's all they're good for, as far as I'm concerned. We get enough information about behavior now from their police interviews and their public interviews that Daniel Martel has spent many hours making up a narrative and trying to push this narrative, but none of us are falling for it. Nobody is falling for it. I think everybody on the globe knows those two have guilty knowledge. And I mean, Jay Scott has got a copy of one of the emails I sent to our CMP. I know Justin at Clutch Them Pearls got a transcript of something I sent in an analysis as well. I had to chop it together because it was two different emails that I had to chop together to put the whole thing. because basically what was happening is I was going over the video. I'd see something. Hey, Donald's in. How are you, my friend? This I love this guy. He is absolutely fantastic. He's God Squad, and I'm not a believer personally, but he's a lovely guy, and he's come along to have a look at one of my lives. He came to the last live, but he said something buggered up. It probably did, because I'm not very good at this yet. But I was sorry, I did drift off subject there. I was going to say that although I don't yet have any qualifications in my area of expertise, well, I wouldn't call it expertise, area of study. I've been doing it for a long time, and I've read some fantastic books on statement analysis, and I'm much more confident in statement analysis than I am body language, because body language keeps changing. It keeps saying, "Oh, and now it means this, and now it means that," and it's like stuff that it was the 80s when I first got into body language, and most of what I learned in the 80s has now been proved to be completely wrong. So, but with the leaps and bounds we're making in neurology these days, we're understanding the brain and behavior so much more and so much quicker than what we were back then. And I'm going to stop there. I've been around these people. I've been around those types of lunatics. I've been around some really heavy, nasty people. And I'm probably the only person on YouTube that has personal experience to the level that I do, and I'm still a behavior analyst. That I'm going to say it. I don't want to come across as arrogant, but I know what I'm talking about. So you don't have to believe me. You don't have to take my word for it. What anything I say, there are plenty of books you can read, and they will all tell you the same thing, because technically anybody that learns statement analysis is learning from the same person, Mr. Avonome Sapir, who is the man who invented scan and view analysis. SCAN stands for scientific content analysis, which originally is what statement analysis was called. And view analysis stands for verbal indicator, essential witness. And it's a set of questions that, given your answers, show an awful lot about your personality and your personality type, your mindset. And it's not something that you can learn out of a book. It's something that you have to be taught, which is another reason why I want to get qualified. But the main reason I want to get qualified is because I want to learn more. I will never stop learning. So anyway, that's enough about me. We're going to go on to discuss how we can spot the bad eggs amongst us, the bad apples that poison the communities, that they tend to do, and a lot of them still get away with it. There's a case in an area in the UK that I know very well, where a young girl called Vicky Hall was kidnapped and murdered and left in a ditch. And I know there's a few guys in that local area, ladies and gentlemen, that are investigating this, and we all had agreed that it was more than one person. But that's for another day. So I do like my true crime stuff, but I love my behavior stuff, and I also had I would say sociopathic mother who had an addiction to painkillers, who treated me really, really badly. So I've seen some behavior firsthand. And I went to boarding school too. It was an all boys school. And unfortunately, I don't have many friends from that school left, because a lot of them decided to end it all because they couldn't live with the ritualized abuse that they took from certain members of staff at that school. And I don't believe that the 2 members of staff that got sent down were the only 2, but they were the only 2 that got convicted. There was 16 years between them, which they should have got each at least. I think they should have got double that each, considering how many lives have been lost because of their actions. And this is another reason why I detest those type of people. And I'm going to do everything I possibly can to educate you guys on how to spot these scumbags. And I'll give you my opinions on how to go forward. But a question came up, Don. We had this discussion while we were on World of Warships, didn't we, mate? Where we both agreed that there should be some kind of governing body, because we were talking about people are now coming forward on the Brian Koberger case, and it transpires that there had been quite a few complaints and concerns raised with the university itself about his behavior, but nothing was done. But the problem I see is, number one, we don't have any type of governing body that is designed to deal with those type of people. And number two, you've got to remember, people are allowed to be weird. They're allowed to. People call me weird. I'm unique. I'm not weird. Yeah, okay. I can be weird sometimes, but it is what it is. I know it's my autism, and I was the one who had to figure that out. I got into neurology and realized I was autistic. Got a book out on autism, which was a fantastic book, by the way, called Neurotribes by a man called Steve Silberman. I would highly recommend it if you want to learn about autism. It's brilliant. Hard hitting book though for someone like me who's lived through some abusive experiences, both from primary caregivers, like my mother, stepdad. He wasn't abusive as such. He's just a dick, basically. He was an idiot. But my mother was abusive. She was a narcissist. She was a compulsive liar. And she hated me for some reason. She pushed me down a set of concrete stairs when I was about 4 or 5. I remember it happening. I remember feeling the nudge. And I remember hearing my mum go, "Oh no." Like, not screaming, "Oh no, these were concrete steps I was falling down." About 4 or 5 years. I think I was about 5. I think I'd started infant school. So believe me, please, when I tell you that I have extensive personal experience with some very ill people. So I know when I see a certain behavior, I know what that behavior is. I can't always explain it like the behavior panel does, or because I'm not a body language expert. I'm not an expert in any of the behavior stuff. And I'll never call myself an expert on it, because to me, that's arrogant. Somebody that will call themselves an expert, you're arrogant as far as I'm concerned. Expert is a name that should be given by other people to you. You don't call yourself an expert. That's arrogance and narcissistic. I'm just going to quickly go into, I know the word narcissist gets thrown about an awful lot these days. Everybody seems to think that this person's a narcissist. That's what, let me put a few things to bed and enlighten you on a few things. Now, number one, every human being on this planet is a narcissist to a certain extent. Now, the word narcissist comes from the Greek Narcissus. And the story goes that Narcissus got trapped in a cave and basically went mental and fell in love with his own reflection in a pool of water. His name, it's always the Greeks, isn't it? And it's Freud as well. He was completely obsessed with the Greek mythology, and sex. And he thought that we all wanted to sleep with our parents. Did a lot of his work on the old Peruvian marching powder and died a raging morphine addict. So I think it's fair to say he had a few issues of his own, but a man that was very much before his time. There are a lot of things I don't agree with from him, but there are an awful lot that I do agree with and I do still feel are relevant today. He invented psychoanalysis. He said that nobody could psychoanalyze themselves. I beg to differ. I've been doing that since I was about 13 years old. So this is how I've managed to get to where I am today. I got into body language and psychology and stuff to try and understand myself. But I was never going to understand myself until I realized I was autistic. And when that day came, I was already behind a metal door. But the day did come and I've turned my life around. I'm now doing all the good things I can do, that I'm able to do. And I'm now living, pretty normal life, which, is taking a lot of hard work and will continue to take hard work. But that's not a feel sorry for me jargon. That is just a hint to people that if you've been through anything like this, if you've had a narcissistic parent or toxic parenting, or you've been abused by your parents, or you can get through it. Let's not forget that when you decide to end it all, it's permanent. There's no reset button. There's no rewind button. There's no respawn point. You're gone and it's permanent. You're never coming back. And somebody said that to me once, and I was feeling that way. And it sunk in. Maybe it was just the right time, right person at the right time, saying the right thing. Which is why I feel the power of words can never be underestimated. Just changing one word in a sentence can change the whole dynamic of the sentence, just by changing one word. I actually demonstrated this to a group of people while I was already banged up, and I was saying, the power of words is so very, very powerful. So I said, I'll show you what I mean. So I picked up a pen and I handed it to one of the guys. And I went, right, now, hand me the pen back, please. So they handed me the pen back. I went, thank you, mate. Took it off him. And then I said to the next guy, I said, right, now you do the same. I'm going to give you the pen. And when I ask for it, you're going to hand it back to me. So I gave him the pen. And I said, can I have the pen back now, please? And he said, yeah, handing me the pen. I went, thank you, sweetheart. And everybody laughed. Now, it was just the first thing to come to mind that I thought it's got to get a reaction from as many people as possible. And it was the first thing I thought of, to call a guy sweetheart. Everybody laughed. He didn't know what to do. And I just said, well, can you see the difference? Instead of saying mate, I said sweetheart to a fella that shocked him, made everybody else laugh, and made me feel a bit bloody embarrassed for saying it. But I had to say something that was going to elicit a big enough response so I could make a point of it. And I said, all I did was change one word of a sentence. I said exactly the same thing to you as I said to him, but I called him mate and you sweetheart. So that just demonstrates how powerful words are. And it's one of the reasons why I concentrate so much on statement analysis much now, because it's so surgical and so on point. So while I'm sitting here chatting a lot of rubbish, I'm going to. There are some. I don't know. There's so much. I was supposed to be ready for this, but I tell you what, we're gonna listen to a bit of practical linguistics. Um, I James is extremely good, and just have a listen to James for a few minutes, and we're going to stop because I haven't seen this one yet, but I will learn something, the same as I hope you guys will learn something. So just to say, although I don't really watch Daphne's case files, it's not because I dislike her or her. I haven't left a like on that, so I will anyway. I just don't feel that she verifies her sources well enough, so I can't. Um, I can't trust her sources, but there are times when they can be trusted. And James is normally the guy who can figure out whether it's it's on point or not. So let's have a listen. Mm, just a note. Hidden in the fog. I used part of one of her videos earlier on today. She is very good. Um, she does do her homework, and she finds, I don't know where she finds this stuff from, but she finds some really interesting stuff. So let's carry on listening to this. And James makes a very, very good point there, um, because I shall say I haven't watched this. I have not watched this video yet, but I can go onto any one of his videos and find it extremely interesting. And I know for a fact that any of you guys watching that are interested in linguistics or statement analysis, you will learn something. Now, what I'm already seeing from this little bit of speech personally is, see, he's got the conjunction, participant, process, participant, participant, circumstance. I'm going to be honest. There's a lot of this I don't understand because this is linguistics. This isn't so much statement analysis where we look at only their words. James goes into it at a depth that I am not at yet. I will get there. I'm determined to. And once I get qualified, I'll be going for my advanced. I'll be teaching. I'll be teaching statement analysis. Not just like I'm trying to do now, but I'll be able to do a much better job because I should know a lot more. And I'm never going to stop learning this stuff. I am literally obsessed with it. But anyway, she says, I do want to touch on a subject, though. To touch on a subject. Well, it's the first thing she says. I do want to touch on a subject, though. So this subject is very important to her because straight away the pronoun I. Now, Peter Hyatt tells us very eloquently that without a pronoun in a sentence, the sentence very likely didn't happen. Because if there's no pronoun, I, they, we, he, she, they're placing nobody in the sentence. So there's a very high likelihood that the sentence is deceptive. However, she's putting, I do want to touch on something. So to her, this is important. And James has just highlighted this, the family altercation that happened in the driveway. That's just what we call qualifying language in statement analysis. We don't need to know where it happened, but she wants us to know where it happened because this is the most important thing to her, this family altercation. And like James says, sounds like she wants to carry on the altercation. So we go, I was there for that. So again, we've got the I pronoun, the process that she was, and I was there for that. So she's saying that she was actually present during this family altercation. So this means an awful lot to her. She's still probably quite angry about this altercation. And I'd love to have been a fly on somebody's shoe or car bonnet or the wall or wherever where this was going on. I'd love to have heard what was going on here. So there, I'm going to let James go through this, but I'm just telling you what I'm seeing straight away, that this family altercation isn't finished for this girl. And she absolutely isn't happy about it, and she seems to feel that it hasn't come to a conclusion. So let's see what James has to say about it. Again, he raises a very, very good point. She doesn't just want to touch on it. She actually wants to, like you said, fire a few shots. So already we're in agreement that there's more to this than what she would really like us to know. So do you understand? Can you see how deep in that James goes with this, though? And he explains this is a principal clause, and the I do want, says, and it does stress, I do want to, not like I want to touch on something, I do want to touch on it. It's what we call, it's what DD would call in his deception deck, if I remember it. It's a intensifying adverb. So it's I'm going to, it intensifies what the next bit of the sentence is going to be. And James explains it beautifully. He just goes into a depth that's just a little bit further on than I'm at. But Now, I would never have known that. I'd never heard the word cataphoric. So I've learned something already. Cataphoric. I'm going to try and remember that one. So cataphoric means it's shining a light before it, and anaphoric means it's shining a light. So what he's basically telling us is the two clauses in the yellow are basically either side of this main clause, which is the most important thing to her, is the family altercation. Like he says, this has got absolutely nothing to do with the disappearance of Jack and Lily. I'll put James's link in the description when I've done this, because you've got to give him a look. He's brilliant. He's one of the best out there on YouTube. I think he's absolutely brilliant. Him, Mike DeMann, and obviously Deception Detective, I think, are the top three on the linguistic side of things. There you go. I'm as far out of the loop as I can possibly be, because that's where I want to be. But I do have my own theories on the relationship between Logan and Daniel, and I do believe they're much closer than what they would like people to believe. I definitely think something's going on between those two. I think they're very close indeed. I'm not going to go any further on that, but I've seen, I've heard language from both of them that indicate to me that there are some much stronger feelings between the two of them than what they're letting on. But that's just my opinion. Because she knows that everybody wants information on this case. Exophoric. And not only that, she's also, this is what we call qualifying language, because we all know. So she's including herself within a group of people, of whoever these all are. We all know and have not said anything. So what she's basically telling us is, we haven't said anything. We decided that, all of us that know haven't said anything, but now I'm going to say something. So whatever's happened, something's happened to make her speak out. And I don't particularly care what it is, because I believe both Daniel and Malaya should be in prison. But they shouldn't be able to send text messages, and nobody should be able to speak to them via social media, because they should be behind a very heavy metal door, in my opinion.
Why are you now saying something after 10 weeks? What has changed? And it seems to me that nothing has.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the
I
video.
am
Today
sorry.
I'm going to look at a sample of speech given by the lady
Don,
left there.
thank
Her
you
name
for
is
that,
Hayley,
mate.
and she is the half-sister of Malaya
Oh,
Brooks Murray,
Jay's here.
mother to Jack and Lily Sullivan,
Give me a
the two
second.
youngsters
Give
that
me
went
a
missing from their
second.
home.
Give me a second here. Jay Scott, how are you, my friend? This is the lady I was referring to before. There was me talking about what James was saying, and it wasn't even playing because I hadn't even pressed the right button. So, Jay Scott is much better at this than I am. Thanks for stopping by and showing us some love, Jay. Much love back, mate. And hopefully we can get this collab up and running at some point, because I'd love to do a collab with you. And I hope that the analysis that I sent you on these two nutcases was of some help. But anyway, right. So let's go ahead and try this again, shall we?
In Nova Scotia, Canada, on May the 2nd of this year.
I'm just going to let him
The
talk
reason why I
now
want
until
to look
we get to
at
the
a
point
sample of
that we
speech
had to stop.
given by her is because I'm still following the case, even though I haven't been making videos recently. And this morning, I was listening to a channel called Daphne's Case Files. And let me just zoom that up. It's a very blurry screenshot.
Can everybody see that on the screen now and hear him?
On Daphne's Case Files, she was saying that Hayley has spoken out and retracted her statement about what happened the day that the family had an altercation in the driveway. And she is now saying, I never once said I found meth or coke. And so
Right there, I'm going to say I don't remember her actually using those words, but I do remember the bit of language that James covered before, and so did Mike DeMann, about what they allegedly found when Daniel came out of the water closet one time. And she certainly did infer that they were substances of some kind, or it was a substance of some kind. But I don't believe that she actually used those words. I don't remember her saying those words. But anyway, let's let the professional talk us through this.
So I thought I would go back and have a look at what she did say, and we'll cover that sample, okay? And that sample comes, let me just erase this. And that statement comes from the reason why I say, possibly even a week ago by now. So thanks very much for commenting, and thanks even more for supplying today's very interesting sample. The thing that stands out straight away is the red-coloured fragments, the family altercation that happened in the driveway. That is not a clause because there's no process here. It's just a thing. It's like a photograph or a screenshot from a movie, or actually in this particular case, it reminds me of a billboard by the side of a road. The family altercation.
Great analogy, by the way.
This is the elaboration. You can delete that. The family altercation. The word family is a classifier. So the head noun is the word altercation. That's what Hayley is calling about. That's what she wants to talk about. Mm-hmm. She wants to continue the altercation. Actually, it hasn't finished for her. This is not about Jack and Lily disappearing. This is about firing a few shots at Daniel and Daniel's family. The reason why I say it reminds me of a billboard is because we have these two yellow principle clauses sandwiching it. I do want to touch on a subject, though. Do is a finite operator that contradicts the word don't. So it, in effect, stresses the word want, and then the desideration to touch on a subject. A couple of times, actually, Hayley downplays her statements. She wants to do more than touch on this. She wants...
It's what's known in statement analysis as weakening modifiers. We have intensifying adverbs, minimizing adverbs, weakening modifiers and qualifiers, and that would be, I think, would come under weakening modifier.
To play it for all it's worth over 8 pages. So let's have a look. A subject, she is teasing the listener here. It's a cataphoric reference that means that it's referring to something that she hasn't said yet. That's why I like to think of that as like a sort of a spotlight shining on a billboard. And if that were not enough, she's got another one here. I was there for that. This is now called an anaphoric reference. So it is shining a light from that direction as well. Make no mistake about it.
That's what she
It is not about her expressing her worry or anxiety about Jack and Lily, at least not directly. She goes on to say there's a big piece that Logan has left out. I don't know what Logan said, by the way. I'm a little bit out of the loop. But
okay, look, I buggered that up. So go and watch this. I'll post a link after I've done the live. No, let's carry on listening to him because he's
once again,
good.
she's teasing the listener here, holding us in her thrall. She knows that she's got all the power today, and she's giving us this great big drum roll. Again, another anaphoric reference. And I'm ready to share that again, another anaphoric reference, because we all know and have not said anything. Now, I get the feeling here that this is not a very good because, is it? She's trying to slip that into the statement there because she needs to set up an excuse for not having said anything.
Or what's known in statement analysis as qualifying language. She feels that she needs to qualify why she hasn't said anything before, which is why I think she's using the royal we. Like I said before, the we pronoun means that she's including herself in a particular group of people, whoever all these people are, because we all know and have not said anything. But she's decided to say something now. So she obviously wants the spotlight for whatever reason. But I mean, I only had to look at this page for seconds, and I knew that she wasn't being completely honest. But let's carry on.
Even though she doesn't excuse herself, she just acknowledges the fact that they haven't said anything, which isn't quite good enough. And it makes me wonder, why now?
Exactly my next question. Why now? What I just said, but she's talking now. Why now? What's happened to make you want to talk now? That, as an interviewer, that's what I'd be asking her. Why are you telling us now? It's like that girl that Sean Atwood had on that said, you know, she was going on about the what was it? Marilyn Manson. She was making an allegation against Marilyn Manson, which in my opinion is a complete load of tosh. And I'll find that video and we can go over that if you like, because the problem with things like SA and any type of predatory or abusive behavior is that there are always going to be people that are going to make false allegations. And that's where the police find things difficult, because in a court of law, it's proof, not truth, as John Wedger tells us. They rely on the burden of proof. The truth means nothing in a court of law, even though you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And the reason why they say the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth is because it covers all types of deception. Lies by omission, lies by commission, and just outright lies. So you omit things, like you leave stuff out. So when you say, I promise to tell the truth, you're saying, I promise I'll tell the truth and I will tell no lies. The whole truth means that you don't omit anything. Perception, that's what lies of perception, omission, and commission. So I promise to tell the truth means I promise not to tell a lie. I promise to tell the whole truth, which means you leave none of it out. And nothing but the truth means you don't add anything, or you don't put your own spin on it to make it look like a particular truth. You tell the facts. So that covers all three types of deception. But like John Wedger says, it relies on a burden of proof. But what really infuriates me personally are people that make false allegations about people. This Me Too movement, as it's called. I don't believe a word she says. I'm going to find that video. If I can find it for this live, I'll do it. If not, I'll find it for a later one. I won't be doing any more lives tonight. I've got other things to do. I do have a life to lead. But I do love doing this. So let's carry on listening to James for a while, and then we're going to move on to something else.
Why are you now saying something after 10 weeks? What has changed? And it seems to me that nothing has changed. I get the feeling that she has been asked perhaps to keep quiet about this and can no longer do so. She has decided to go rogue because she has listened to Daniel and Darren especially speaking about Malaya's role in the disappearance of the children, and she can no longer bite her tongue.
And I will say, anybody that's been covering this case, been following this case, will know that Daniel is blatantly trying to throw Malaya under the bus here, about in this case, and he's inferring in not so subtle ways that she is responsible for. Don is asking a question. Does a person's educational level affect the way you conduct your analysis? No. No, and I'll explain why. The reason is because where statement analysis is concerned, we look at the words and the words alone, nothing else. The person's background. As a statement analyst, we like to know as least amount as possible of the case. We only need to know a rough outline, if anything, because to do a proper analysis, we cannot afford to have any unconscious bias in any direction. So what Peter Hyatt used to tell us continuously, and what Abhinayam Sapir, Mr. Sapir tells us, is we listen to their words and we believe them. It is rule number one of statement analysis. We listen to their words and we believe them, meaning we believe their words, and we don't stop believing them unless they talk us out in their own language of believing them. And in the rules of deception, because it's such an it's such an unnatural thing for the human brain to do, deceive another human being, that it causes stresses on the brain regardless of your educational level. And those stresses are caused between your amygdala, your hippocampus, and your prefrontal cortex. Now, your prefrontal cortex, in fact, what I shall do is I shall put on my camera and I will show you where the prefrontal cortex is. So if we just get that there, I don't know if how well you can see that. Let's have a look. I don't know what I'm doing now. Now I've completely lost what I'm doing. The prefrontal cortex is found. This is the prefrontal cortex here. Don't know if you can see that well, to be honest. Let's move this so we can see that. Oh Christ! Let's get that out of the way. You can tell I'm new to this, can't you? Right. Okay. So the prefrontal cortex is here. This is your frontal lobe. Your brain is split up into lobes. It's in two hemispheres, kept together by what's known as the corpus callosum, which is the thousands and thousands of nerve endings that bind the two hemispheres of the brain together. Corpus callosum is Latin. It just means large body. So that goes right down the center. This is the two hemispheres here. And it literally goes through the center and it binds the two hemispheres of the brain together. Now, your prefrontal cortex is here. Now, this is your frontal lobe. Your frontal lobe is here. And then from here, you've got your parietal lobe, which starts there and goes to about here. And then you have your occipital lobe, which is here, which deals with eyesight. That's broken up into 8 pieces, 4 on each side. And then in here, you have just inside your left temporal lobe is your amygdala, which is situated around about here, I think. This is the limbic system here. You can see the corpus strialis here. And there's a lot of stuff that I don't know because this wasn't the poster I actually ordered, but it's still a good poster. And this here is your temporal lobe. And you have your cerebellum, which is here. This is your cerebellum. Cerebellum is Latin word for little brain. This deals with all your autonomous stuff like your heart rate, your breathing, your core temperature. Anything that is just automatic, autonomous, done without thinking is done by the cerebellum. All of your emotions are dealt with by your amygdala, which is just inside the left temporal lobe, which will be around here. And your hippocampus, which is one of each side. Hippocampus just means seahorse in Latin. Basically, what happens is when you start lying and deceiving somebody, it causes stresses on the brain that produce body movements. Turn my camera off because I'm ugly fucker. It causes stresses on the brain because it your amygdala is trying to say to your prefrontal cortex, I'm not happy with this. We're about to tell a lie here. And your prefrontal cortex is what deals with your behavior, like your risk taking, your planning, all different areas of behavior. You also have, I can go into Wernicke's area, Broca's area, speech area, all that sort of stuff. But this isn't a neurology lesson, so we're not going to go down it. But the simple answer, Don, is no, mate. The person's educational level has no bearing. The only bearing it will have is their vocabulary. Somebody of higher education is likely to have a higher vocabulary than somebody of a lower education or lower IQ. But the average human being has between 20 and 30,000 words in what they call our internal dictionary. And in a fraction of a second, those words are chosen and put into a sentence. Now, I'm not going to go into how it all works and why it all does that. That's for another video. But the short answer, Don, is no, it doesn't, because their language will still give them away. And if there's deception there, I will see it. I know I will, and I always do. And every time I've seen it, every single statement analyst on YouTube, X, or anywhere else has totally agreed and said exactly the same thing as me. So I can't be doing that badly. So let's carry on listening to James, because he's much better at this than me.
I get the feeling that is what is driving her. But it's a very crucial point. That's a nice word, crucial. It means it's the crux of the matter. This is central to the matter.
Hello, Kaz. Great to have you with us. Thank you for coming.
They seem to be skipping over. This is interesting. Again, she is downplaying and softening her own language. Seem to, imagine you've got is in the middle. You're going to have seem to be on the left-hand side, and you will have turned out to be on the other side. So this is called a reality phase. It's an extended process, which is extended in terms of a reality phase. And she is erring on the side of the unreal on the left-hand side. That seems to be an elephant on the horizon. As it gets nearer,
very big elephant.
Yeah, it is an elephant. And then when I report it later, it turned out to be an elephant. You see, I go from unreal to real. So she is leaning on the side of the unreal. And I guess that she's doing that because she knows that her evidence is not particularly strong. It's very circumstantial. So she has to be careful about what she says.
Hence all the qualifying language. Don, I'll tell you what, I know you're interested in this kind of stuff, and I know you're very welcome, mate. And I know we'll talk about this further anyway on Xbox when we're shooting at people in boats. But yeah, basically that's the long and short of it. So let's carry on listening to this, because we're not going to listen to all of this, because there's other things that I need to go on to before the live finishes.
And indeed, today she came out with not what I would call a retraction, but a clarification of what she said. She's trying to be very careful. So this was just before the briefing. Okay, we're getting into the story now. She's going into story mode. That's called the orientation, and it's temporal. So that's a temporal orientation. If I can remember quite right here, I wonder if she's giving herself an out for later on here, and she could say, oh, actually, no, I didn't remember it quite rightly, because you'll see the story is a little bit screwy.
And he makes another fantastic point. In statement analysis, when we ask somebody a question, did you steal my car last night? And if they say, well, I can't remember, or oh, I don't recall doing that, that's deceptive automatically. When you say, oh, I don't recall that, yes, you bloody do. That's why we automatically say, well, that we're going to mark that as deceptive straight away. In certain contexts, yeah, I mean, if you just woke up and you're out cold, drunk as a skunk the night before, don't remember, yes, okay, in the right context. But when you're asking a sober person, did you steal my car? Oh, I don't recall it. Come on, mate. You're going to remember if you stole somebody's car or not. So that's why we would automatically call that deceptive. Which leads me on to my next point, where I think she's being more than slightly deceptive here. But James brings up a very important point where he says, I wonder if she's giving herself an out. I think that's exactly what she's doing, because she's trying to push her own narrative here to try and counter Daniel's narrative, by the sound of it. And I noticed that in no part of this speech do I see Jack and Lily's names. In fact, they don't even get a mention. So she's not in the least bit interested. And in statement analysis, what we do is we look for priorities. Mike DeMann calls it plaids. He's dubbed it plaids. And PLAID stands for priorities, linguistics. I can't remember off the top of my head, but priorities is the first one. And the way we figure out somebody's priorities is where it's placed in the sentence. So if you want to say about some things that happened to you the day before, the first thing you say is going to be the most important thing. That's your priority. The second thing you mention is not as important. And the last thing you mention is the least important. So this is where we get the priorities from. Somebody that's telling you about something, their priorities will always be the first thing they mention. And that's how we can usually determine, if you're good enough, which direction this particular bit of speech is going to go in. But I think we're already getting that from James. You don't need it from me. He can explain it much better.
We were all in the house. Now I wonder who we is, and all will find.
That's exactly what I want to know. Who's we and who's all? You were one of them, obviously, miss. Who were the rest of them?
Find out in just a second. Dan was in the bathroom. And when I say we, I'm talking about my sister-in-law, her sister, Malaya's mother, and my partner. So that is, I believe, Shelby, Cheryl, Cindy, and I don't know who her partner is, but
she doesn't want to give us the name of her partner anyway. So that could mean anything. Because what the first things I look for in a statement are pronouns. I want to see the pronouns in the sentence, and I want to see what pronouns are being used in that sentence, and do they correspond to the particular context of that sentence, of that statement. So Pronoun changes are also a very, very big red flag. And one of my favorites is past tense or change in tense. Because it's so easy to spot, it jumps out at you straight away when somebody changes tense. So if they're telling you something about something that happened, say, what's the date today? Sunday. So if somebody's telling you something about what happened on Friday, it will all be in past tense, because it's experiential memory. It happened, so they're recalling it. But when somebody goes into present tense, that's known in statement analysis as free editing process. It basically means they're making it up as they go along. It didn't happen, because if it did happen, it would come from what's known as experiential memory, which means it happened. You come from experience. But when it hasn't been experienced, people tend to slip into present tense, and that is a massive, massive red flag for deception. And it's one of my favorites because it is so easy to spot. So if you ever hear somebody slip into present tense about something that happened before, you know they're lying.
We're very much getting an us and them situation here. When I say we, I don't mean Dan. I get the feeling it's us and them now, and she's projecting that back to the day when this all unfolded. And we were all in the kitchen, meaning not Dan, and we heard like things rustling around in the bathroom. I wonder if they were already suspicious of Daniel's behavior at this.
I believe they were. I believe they were more than suspicious, actually. Personally, I think she's softening this to make it sound like, oh, we had no idea. I don't believe that you can have any type of family orientation of any type and not be suspicious of somebody that's using substances. And clearly, in my opinion, Daniel Martel is clearly some kind of substance abuser. He's also a child abuser, and this is known fact that Jack particularly has gone to school with black eyes and marks around the face and the head, and so did Lily, as far as I know. So it seems obvious to me that there was some kind of physical abuse going on, and there were warning signs, and we'll talk about these warning signs in a second, because we're not going to listen to much more of this because we've covered pretty much what I needed to cover.
Point. Notice this is a mental process of perception, and this is then called the perception, but it's not quite as good as a visual perception, but it's the best that she's got. And she can't quite say that Daniel was rustling around, not at this point anyway. I think later on she does, but here she's saying things were doing the acting. It's very, very distancing, actually.
That's exactly what I was about to say. That's what they call distance in language, psychological and emotional distancing. And a best way I can describe it is distance in language happens when you get, let's say you have a female that's been hairy aped by somebody or assaulted in the S way by a male. It very well may be that they were a single unit. So the pronoun that she will use is, yes, we met up at a certain time, we went to so and so. But then when it happens, when the assault actually takes place, the pronoun will change from we to he and I. And that's what we call psychological and emotional distancing. And it means that the lady is no longer referring to themselves as a singular unit of we. It becomes he and I. We call that distance in language. So, Kaz, I'm just going to, all these kids missing, Jack and Lily, Sebastian, Summer, Emmanuel recently, you can tell the ones who are being blamed are lying. Well, if you know what you're looking for, if you know about behavior, you know enough, yes. But that's the reason why they're being blamed, is because of their lying. And innocent parents don't lie about their missing kids. The way I put it is, why are you lying to law enforcement if your children are missing? So that's my first question. Because if any of my kids went missing, I'd be telling the police every bloody thing I knew, and I wouldn't stop. I'd be doing everything I possibly. I'd be kicking indoors. I'd be waterboarding people if I had to find out where my kids were. Simple. There's no doubt about it. I'd be booting indoors, and I would be going. People would be getting hurt if they were lying. If they lied to me. If it was my kids. And any innocent parent would do the same. And Kaz says there, any innocent parents would be pulling their hair out. They would. But in the case of Jack and Lily, do you see grief in any of them? Do you see a glabella, the grief muscle? Do you see any tears? Do you see any chin boss? Do you see anything that tells you that they're going through grief or sorrow? No, I see an act. I see a very bad act that nobody is falling for, which is why I don't understand why these two have not been arrested yet. But I have to trust RCMP. And I've spoken at length with RCMP, even recently about this, as less than 2 weeks ago. But I will not divulge what was said until this case is finished. But yeah, so that's what we call distancing language. And the people are being blamed because they're lying, because it's obvious that they are lying. So instantly you're putting yourself in the crosshairs, aren't you? So don't lie. If you're lying, you're not innocent. So, you know, and trust me, people would be getting waterboarded, and I'd be wiring people's extremities up to a car battery. You know, yes, Kaz, the police do have a hard job, but at the same time, their job wouldn't be so hard if they were trained well enough, and I don't think they are. Certainly not in this country.
Actually,
well, when RCMP are asking me, an amateur behaviour analyst with no qualifications in this field at all yet, when they are asking me if I can give them any more help and any more information, that tells me all I need to know. This is an investigator on this case asking me if there's anything else I can give them to help them, because they're not trained well enough to know these things. Every police officer on the planet should learn statement analysis. That you can get a book by Peter Hyatt called Wise as a Serpent, Gentle as a Dove, Dealing with Deception. £6.78 from Amazon. And that book itself holds more than enough information to allow anybody that's read it and taken it in to spot deception anywhere. That book alone. That's not including I Know You're Lying by Mark McLeish, Don't Be Deceived by Mark McLeish, Tell Me Anything Anywhere by Jack Schaefer. Another one, Mark McLeish is one of my favorites. Peter Hyatt will always be my top one because he was the one who got me into statement analysis to begin with. Deception Detective is the one who is responsible for making me just absolutely fall in love with it. Watching him work is magical because he's extremely good at spotting things on the fly, which is what he mainly does. And in the courtroom, because he's an attorney, you have to do it on the fly, and he's very, very good at it.
she can't go and say that
I hope that explains something.
Daniel was rustling around because he was behind closed doors. Now, I think that she's getting the story a bit muddled up here. She says, we're like, what the hell? That doesn't seem to be the obvious response to rustling in the bathroom. So
I also missed Peter very, very much.
And was like, Dan, what's going on? Are you all right? Time. Anyway, my sister-in-law went in and said she needed to use the bathroom.
Which is a lot of rubbish. She didn't need to use the bathroom. I think they were suspicious already. Don says, how long would it take to learn? Mate, you can do a 4-day course. A 4-day course in statement analysis, and you will be a qualified statement analyst. And you can then go on to do your advanced. It's not cheap. There are some cheaper courses out there online, but I already know more than what they could teach me anyway. They're just Mickey Mouse qualifications. I don't want a Mickey Mouse qualification. I want a qualification that's going to take me somewhere, that's going to teach me something and allow me to go on and learn more, because I am never going to stop learning about statement analysis. On the body language side, I think I've learned about as much as I need to learn. I see stress indicators. I now understand what I'm seeing and why I'm seeing it. And that's all I need to know. I don't need experts to explain it to me anymore. So I had to teach myself. And I've taught myself by watching Peter Hyatt's videos, watching Deception Detective. And I mean, I binge watch Peter Hyatt's and Deception Detective stuff. I've read countless books, and I go to bed listening to Audible. And they're all behavior books, statement analysis mainly, because that's what I'm concentrating on at the minute, mainly. Because that's going to be my qualification, and I'm going to go on to teach. Who I teach is going to be down to me. I'm going to decide who I teach, and I will only be teaching this sort of stuff to people who I think is going to be using this kind of knowledge and education for good things. So people's character is going to go a long way to helping me decide whether I'm going to teach them or not. Only a couple of minutes left of this, because we don't need to go into the whole video.
I mean, would you really just go in if somebody's in their own bathroom? It doesn't seem quite right to me. And I wonder if she's muddling up the sequence. Was it in fact the case?
I don't think she's muddling up the sequence, James. I think she's making the whole sequence up myself, but there you go.
That her sister-in-law needed to use the bathroom. Was that the first step? And then was it the case that they noticed that Dan was in there rustling about? The stepmom went and knocked on the door and said, "What's going on? Are you all right?" And then he came out and they said, "What the hell were you doing in there?" I wonder if it's more logical that happened, and she's kind of jumbling the sequence up in her mind
because she's being deceptive. This is not a truthful statement. And I'll tell you how I know it's not a truthful statement, because it's not believable. Nobody, it doesn't matter if you're in your own house or anybody else's house, if somebody's in the bathroom and you think they're using the toilet, you're not going to go bang on the door going, "Hurry up, I need to." You're only going to do it if they've been in there for a certain amount of time. So she's omitting a lot of stuff here. She's leaving a lot of stuff out. And to me, she seems to be inferring more than educating or giving us. She's not shining a spotlight on this. She's shining a tiny little beam and just highlighting the things that she wants to highlight. So so that's that as far as that one's concerned. Kaz says that's amazing. Wish I had the brain capacity to keep it all in. Trust me, Kaz, you do, mate. Statement analysis is not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. It's very easy to learn. Very easy to learn. And if you buy a book, I would always tell anybody that first getting into statement analysis, buy Peter Hyatt's book, Wise as a Serpent, Gentle as a Dove, Dealing with Deception. £6.78, I think, less than £7 from Amazon. And that £7 will give you hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of education on statement analysis in just that one book. And anything by Mark McClish, Don't Be Deceived, I Know You're Lying. There's other books like Spy the Lie, How to Spot a Liar by Greg Hartley. Great book. I'm going to start reading that again, probably tomorrow. You know, so I don't just watch YouTube. I read the books, and most of the books that I've read on behavior have been referred by Behavior Panel. I don't know if Deception Detective has ever really championed any particular books, but he does do a lot to champion other channels. He's a great believer in helping other channels build and get better. And he follows a lot of the same people I follow. So, you know, we're all in the same circles. Even though I'm not qualified, I'm being told by people that teach that I'm easily good enough to get a qualification. So that in itself tells me that I'm good enough. I just want the qualification. So not so much for me, Kaz. I really appreciate your sentiment there. But there are people out there that are doing a hell of a lot more than I'm doing. I'm concentrating on getting my qualification, and this content creating is not going to be my my vocation. I believe my skill set is better put to use in other areas. I believe I can do more good in other areas using the skill set that I have and I'm building on, and it's not creating content for YouTube. However, I may not stop. I will probably keep putting videos up every now and again, or doing lives, because I enjoy doing it, but it's not going to be where my skill set is going to be put mostly to use. I want to start a charity. So my charity is going to be for survivors of trauma, any type of trauma, whether it be childhood trauma, combat trauma, any type of PTS. I don't call it PTSD. I don't believe it should be called disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder shouldn't be called that. Everything I've read on PTSD or PTS says it's the perfectly normal way for the brain to react to that type of stress or abnormal behavior or whatever they've gone through, experience. So if it's a natural thing for the brain to do, why are they calling it a disorder? Now, I spoke to a neurologist. He actually teaches, and he was telling me that the way they decide whether it's a disorder is if it's just a reaction that doesn't have an effect on your behavior, then they don't call it a disorder. It's only called a disorder if it affects your behavior. Now, post-traumatic stress does not need to be called a disorder, because if everything I've read on the subject says it's a perfectly natural way for the brain to react to those stimulus, then why is it being called a disorder? It shouldn't matter how it affects your behavior. It should not be called a disorder. And Don, I'm sure you'll back me on this, mate, if you're still here. The word disorder within me telling you that, and he's a very close friend of mine, very good man, got a very good heart, very big heart and very pure heart, and I love him to bits. But I'm sure Don will back me here when I say the word disorder, whether you're US, no, you shit, and a disorder has within them. You're going to basically discharge a. You can't hear me. Why can't you hear me? You should be able to hear me. Don, are you? Is anybody else having issues hearing me? Because everything's coming up as input from my mic at my end. So, you started reading up. I started reading up on what? What do you mean? I read up on a lot of stuff. But you know yourself, Don, the word disorder is not a particularly good word within the military, is it? And to tell somebody that you, I kept breaking up. I'm sorry, that's me. So I keep pulling away from the microphone, and so to tell a soldier that's just about to be discharged into Civvy Street, who, let's face it, if you've done 22 years, your full 22 years in the military, Civvy Street, as it's known within the military circles, civilian life, has become an alien environment because you're so regimented that all you've known since, I mean, a lot of these guys, they sign up 16, 17-year-old, they're still teenagers, their prefrontal cortex is still growing. Their brains are still growing. It doesn't stop. Your prefrontal cortex does not stop growing until you're about 25. This is why your car insurance is always higher until you reach 25, because your risk taking and your decision making processes have not quite matured enough. Because our closest living relative, the chimpanzee, their neocortex. Neo means new, cortex just means cover. So you've got your paleocortex, limbic then you've got your mammalian cortex, which is your mammalian brain, which your limbic system is technically part of. And then you've got your outer cover, which is called the neocortex. And it just means new cover. And this is what separates us from other primates, the size of our neocortex and our prefrontal cortex. No, he served a disc taken out of saying thank you into life, which is basically an alien environment to them, because Civvy Street is not what they remember, because they've been so regimented in the military. So to say that you have a disorder, I think, is very, very damaging, because that must have a negative effect on the psyche of a soldier. You're being told that you have a disorder just before you get discharged into an alien environment. When you go to war, you get given the weapons, the ammo, the kit, the clothing, the training, the backup. But when they discharge you into Civvy Street, civilian life, you get next to nothing. There are still thousands of ex-servicemen living on the streets of the UK alone, because, and we could go into the migrant side of it, but I'm not going to touch on that, because I don't believe it really has much of an impact. I think it's society itself that is to blame because we don't seem to give these guys what they deserve when they come out. We give them everything they need to go off and fight the war for us, but the biggest fight of their lives starts the day they come into Civvy Street, because it's an environment that they are no longer used to, because it's an alien environment, because they've been regimented. So to tell a soldier you have a disorder as you're discharging them, to me, I think is dangerous. At the very least, it's damaging. And it can't be good to hear to a soldier that you have a disorder, considering what disorder means within the military. So I think the D should be dropped. I'm currently in the process of trying to get the GMC or whoever it is that makes these decisions to get the D dropped, because I don't believe it should be called a disorder. Post-traumatic stress is enough. You don't need to add the disorder. It's a word, like I said earlier, the power of words. That one word changes the dynamic of post-traumatic stress. Oh, I have a disorder. Automatically you're thinking, I'm abnormal. I have a disorder. I'm not normal. Well, that's completely wrong. But you will think that because you told you have a disorder. It's an automatic thought. Oh, well, there's something wrong with me then. No, there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain has just reacted to the outside stimuli that you've been through. And I just don't think it's helpful. I think it's a very, very negative word to use, especially to service personnel. So that I think it should be dropped. There's no need for it. There's no need for the word disorder. You've got post-traumatic stress. Okay, fine. That doesn't make you abnormal. It just means you've been through things that other people haven't been through, and your brain is naturally, because our brains change shape. Our brains are asymmetrical, which means that they're not identically symmetrical on either side. Our life experiences change the shape of our brain. Nobody's brains are the same shape. And that is what our experiences do to our brain. And like everything I've read, there is a completely normal reaction. So don't call it a disorder. So any of you out there, it doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, where you're from. If you have PTS, tell people I have post-traumatic stress, not PTSD. We need to start getting that D to disappear, because it's not needed, and it's a dangerous word to add to something like that, especially when you're dealing with military personnel. And I don't think civilian people need to be told they have a disorder, because it automatically makes you think there's something wrong with you, and there isn't. Nothing wrong with you. What's wrong is the experiences you went through. You're not abnormal. So I think they need to be a bit more careful with their wording with this sort of thing. And they are starting to listen to me, and I'm in the. And Kaz says I never say the disorder word. No, I don't blame you. You don't need to. PTS is enough. And you don't even need to divulge to anybody that you have PTS if you don't want to. Nobody says you have to. I think you're very brave to when you say that you do suffer from it, and you are a trauma survivor. And anybody that's been through any trauma, whether it's childhood trauma or combat trauma, it could be trauma through losing somebody close to you. It's all sorts of trauma that the human brain can go through. And, the way that the brain reacts is perfectly natural. So don't ever think that you're abnormal or there's something wrong with you. And Don, yes, makes a good point there as well. Disorder can take rights away. It surely can. And it can make people think that their rights have been taken away even when they haven't. And especially with military, but it's a stigma. It absolutely is a stigma, Kaz. You bang on. But it's a stigma that's dying down. People are becoming a more sensitive towards it, I should say. It's like autism, where we're starting to learn a lot more about autism now, thanks to Dr. Hans Asperger and his work during the 60s. But with the evolution of the frequency, the fMRI, which stands for functional magnetic resonance imager. Anybody that's been through that machine that they lay down, go in, and it's a big cylinder and it goes around. That's an MRI machine. But with the brain, they call it a functional MRI. And what it does is it shows in real time the parts of the brain that are being activated. And since that's been used, we're now getting a much better understanding of the human brain and how it affects our behavior, our emotions, and we're coming on in leaps and bounds now. I don't think we'll ever understand the full human brain to its full capacity, because I don't think we're meant to fully understand it, because what I fear is it's like the day we learned to split the atom. I watched Oppenheimer yesterday, day before, and it said it touched on the story of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods, and for doing that he was he was chained to a rock and had his liver eaten every day or something. More Greek mythology. Sigmund Freud would have loved that, but you know, and I always say that the day we learned to split the atom was the day we destroyed ourselves, because it's a power that we cannot be trusted with. So if you imagine the day they learned to split the hydrogen atom, basically they used nuclear fission rather than, and fission is the breaking apart of atomic particles. Fusion is the joining together. And what they actually figured out was you can use fusion to create fission. And what you're basically doing is what the Large Hadron Collider does in Switzerland. It blasts particles towards each other at close to the speed of light. It's not quite the speed of light, but it's very, very close to the speed of light. And they smash them together. Now that is fusion. But when that happens, and I'm not a physicist, so I can't go into too much detail, because I learned this at school and I've never really looked into it since. But with an atom, if you have atoms and you have molecules. Now, an atom comes from an element. An element is one substance: hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. They're the first ones of the periodic table. They're all elements. A compound is a mixture of two or more elements. Now, all elements and compounds are held together by atoms or molecules. A molecule is part of a compound, an atom is part of an element. But now they've figured out there are subatoms. But anyway, you have the nucleus, which is in the center of an atom. And around it, you have electrons. They can be positively charged, negatively charged. You can have two more positively charged than you have negatively, or vice versa. And what happens is when you smash these atoms together, energy is exerted. Now, if you look at the bomb dropped on Hiroshima in May 1945, it was, I think, was it 30 kilotons, something like that? 30 kilotons. Now they've got nukes at like 100 and 200 megatons. Now, kilotons, I knew this before Oppenheimer, but Oppenheimer, the film puts it together very, very well. But just to put a point on it, there are different types of energy released in an explosion. Now, the scientific definition of an explosion is simply a chain reaction. It's a chain reaction that releases all of the contained energy all at once. And let's say you have a grenade going off, or just a banger, or a firecracker, or whatever. You hear the bang. So the different types of energy you get are light. So the flash, you see the light. You get heat. You get sound. You get kinetic energy, which moves stuff. And you get electrical energy, because there are electrical isotopes left behind whenever there's an explosion, even if it's just for a fraction of a second. That chain reaction happens very, very quickly, which is why it's an explosion. It happens very, very quickly. But with a nuclear explosion, you've got that one more bit of energy on top, which is the nuclear energy. Which radioactive isotopes, stuff that were left behind after the bombs they dropped. Now, the first one they dropped on Hiroshima, I think, was at something like 30 kilotons or something like that. And I think the one on Nagasaki, was it 4 days later, was slightly smaller. But now we're dealing. It was. How they came up with kilotons was the explosion was comparable to 1,000 tons of TNT. TNT stands for trinitrotoluene. I'm not a chemist, so I can't tell you everything that's in it, but there's 3 nitrates, because it's trinitro. You need nitrates to make an explosion, generally, unless you're dealing with military grade stuff, which you don't always need that. But ammonium nitrate is a big one for ANFO. ANFO stands for ammonium nitrate fuel oil. It's ammonium nitrate mixed with diesel, and mixed in a certain way to a certain I can't remember the bloody word, certain amount of one, certain amount of the other, and I'm not going to tell you how much, simply because I can't really remember, but I wouldn't tell you anyway. And that's more of a lifting charge. That's what ANFO is, what's used in Africa for diamond mining and stuff like that, when they can't afford proper dynamite, TNT or whatever they use these days. RDX, Super X, which is, I think, 3 times more powerful than C4, Compound 4, which everybody knows about, but it's now C5, Compound 5, Super X, or RDX, as it's known. Something like 10 times more powerful, 10 times more powerful than C4, which was just known as Compound 4, because there were 4 different compounds put together. I don't know what's in them. I'm not a chemist, and I'm not really interested in what's in them, because I've got no interest in bombs. But I like to see things go bang, yeah, in the right circumstances, but I don't want to play with explosives, because they frighten me, just like snakes do. I wouldn't play with a snake, so I wouldn't play with a hand grenade. Same bloody difference. It's the same reason, because they both kill you. But yeah, so when you're dealing with nuclear energy, you have the radioactive isotopes that are left behind. Now, I can't go into that because I don't understand it. I'm not a radiologist. I'm not an atomic scientist. I just have a basic understanding of it, so I can explain it to a certain extent. So that's basically what happens during an explosion. And an atomic explosion, what they were actually doing was splitting the hydrogen atom. That's why it's called the H-bomb. Now, my granddad actually drove the H-bomb for a little while he was in the RAF. He was in the Royal Air Force for nearly all of his life. He was in MT, mechanical transport, which means he drove practically everything with an engine and wheels. Sometimes they had tracks. And I'll tell you a quick little story before we move on. Back when Wattisham, that is now Army Air Corps Wattisham, where the Apaches are based, where Prince Harry trained and learnt his skills as a RIO, or radar intercept officer, or WISO as the Americans call them. WISO stands for Weapons Systems Officer. That's what the Americans usually got. I think Rio is what the Navy pilots call them. WISOs are what the Army or Air Force pilots call them. I don't know. There's different ones. I never served. I never flew. I've never flown in my life, so I don't know any more than that. I'm sorry. But yeah, Harry was a rear seater. Basically, he didn't fly the aircraft. He operated the radar and the weapons, which they would call a radar intercept officer or a weapons systems officer, or otherwise known as a backseater. That's what Harry did. But anyway, before it became Army Air Corps Wattisham, it was Royal Air Force Wattisham. And my granddad was based there for many, many years. He even went back in as a civilian sergeant, and basically worked out the rest of his working days until he wasn't made to retire, but he was forced to retire because he just couldn't do his job. He was too old. And it would already been made. The decision had already been made at that point that it was no longer going to be RAF, because back when it was RAF, there were 74 squadrons, 74 Tigers, and 56 Firebird Squadron, and they were, I think the Firebirds were American and 74 were British. I'm not sure, but we had both British and American aircraft there, same as we did at Lakenheath. I still go to Lakenheath and watch the aircraft, the F-35s and stuff, and the F-15s. It's fantastic to watch. And I can't remember a guy's name, but he actually covers it. But yeah, so that's as far as I can go on that. We're not learning anything about behavior about this. Just went off topic a little bit because I can talk crap sometimes. Excuse me. Now, the idea of this this little podcast was to learn about behaviors of predatory personalities, psychopaths, and abusive personalities. Now, it took me a long time to swallow a very bitter pill that my mother was as evil as she was, and lied as much as she did. Believe me, when that day, I hope no one ever has to live through a day like that, when they have to accept the fact that their own mother is the biggest negative impact on their life. And when the realization comes to you that she's been lying to you for your whole life about just about everything, it's a very, very bitter pill to swallow. And I would not wish that on anybody. It's not a nice feeling. And I know that from experience. So what I'm going to do is, rather than trail through a lot of videos that I still haven't yet decided which ones we're going to use, because I started this a little bit later than I should have done, really. I should have made a little bit more preparation. I do apologize to my audience for that. So I'm just gonna, we spent so long on the practical linguistics thing that we didn't get a chance to do most of what I did, but this is going to be a series of videos anyway, about psychopaths, abusers, and predators. Now, one thing I do want to touch on is toxic parenting. Now, toxic parenting can come from a variety of reasons. It could be deliberate neglect. It could be ignorant neglect. I don't mean not knowing that you're actually neglecting your child's needs. I was a bit like that myself because I was a heroin addict for a very long time. So there are times where I did neglect my kids for the attention that they needed. They were never neglected to the point where they went without food, or my ex Mrs. their mother is an idiot, but the one thing she did make sure was we always had food, they always had decent clothes, and I did what I could. But I was in and out of a heroin addiction, so that's just something I have to live with. But I'm not going to hide it. I'm an honest person. don't like being lied to, so I try not to lie to anybody else. I will tell the odd white lie. No, your bum doesn't look big in that red dress, darling. No, it looks fucking massive. You know, that sort of thing. We all tell lies. Apparently, each human tells on average about 10 lies a day, but this can, this on average, approximate. So some people just refuse to tell lies, full stop. Some people love telling lies. Psychopaths, abusers and predators are very manipulative people. Psychopaths especially, which leads me to believe that my mother had psychopathic tendencies, because she would, I'll give you an example. My mother had what she said was an attempt at unaliving herself. And I'll tell you what she did. While my brother and sister and my brother's friend and the dog were in the house upstairs, my mother decided she was going to turn the gas on of the oven, leave it on until the whole room stunk of gas, stick her head in the oven and light it. And I don't believe that this was an actual attempt. I think it was not a cry for help. It was a cry for attention, because my mother was a very narcissistic woman. She hated the attention taken away from her. This is why she hated my Uncle John. This is why they never got on. But my Uncle John wasn't the type of guy to tell lies about her, but she would tell lies about anybody and everything. And I know this because my mum came home from the doctor's once. She'd been feeling really bad. And she'd gone to the doctor. And when she came back, I said, "What did the doctor say then, Mum?" And she said, "Oh, they're not sure." She said, "But I'm showing symptoms of," what was it? I can't remember what it said. Glandular fever. Glandular fever. Now, I don't know much about glandular fever, but I have spoken to people that have had it, and they said to me, if you have glandular fever, by God, you know about it. You're not walking around, you're not driving cars, and you're certainly not driving yourself to the bloody doctors. And I listened to my mum phone every single person she could. And when she would tell one person, "Oh, it's glandular fever." And I'll be thinking, hang on a minute. You said symptoms of glandular fever. You didn't say what. And then to somebody else, it was, "Oh, symptoms of glandular fever. They don't know what it is." And then to somebody else, it was symptoms of glandular fever. That's what they think it is. And it was all bullshit. The doctor said, "We don't know what it is. We were worried that it could be glandular fever because you were showing symptoms of it, but it's not glandular fever." Yet I heard my mother with my own two ears phone about 7 or 8 people and tell them that it was glandular fever, or it was believed to be glandular fever. And that was the day the penny dropped that my mother was a liar. So believe me when I tell you, I know what it's like to live with a toxic parent. And to give you another little snippet, when I moved back down south from up north, I moved down to help my mum because she needed a house decorating and she was disabled. My brother obviously wasn't helping. My sister, who's now my brother, she wasn't helping. So it was left to Muggins here. Yeah, I had kids and a family up there that needed me as well. So I felt torn, but I thought it was my mother. And she said to me, "Why don't you get yourself some qualifications to help your job prospects?" So we had Learn Direct in the area at the time. It got shut down. But so I went there and I got qualifications in ICT. But I said to my mum, because she had a computer, and I said, "Well, okay, so if I go and do an IT course, will you let me practice on your computer so I can, I can do the best I can and learn quicker?" And she said, "Yeah, of course." But every single time I asked my mum if I could use her computer, the answer was nope. And she would turn away, and I saw her grinning as she said no. She could not help but grin. And that's because I believe she was a psychopath. She was enjoying hurting my life and hurting me. So as much as these experts might have interviewed all these psychopaths and all these, you cannot get better knowledge than 30-something years of experience of a toxic, narcissistic, manipulative, evil parent. And it's something that I will never forget, and I still have to deal with to this day. Now, we will dive into that more later on, because toxic parenting is something that I think we all need to look out for. My number one priority here is to educate people in what to look for, so you can discern whether you're dealing with a psychopath, an abuser, or a predator. Now, most abusers, all abusers, as far as I know, are narcissists. All predators, as far as I know, are psychopaths, and all psychopaths are narcissists. We know this because Scott Rouse tells us time and time again. However, not all narcissists are psychopaths. But how do you tell the difference? Well, we are going to do a deep dive into that. And on the next video, we are going to look in depth at some psychopaths. And this is going to be a series of videos. I don't know how many there are going to be, but the aim is to educate people so they know the type of people that they have around them or their children, the type of people that will be dealing with them or their children. I believe people should know exactly who they're dealing with. And the way I discern the type of person I'm dealing with is by using my behavior analysis knowledge. And I'm not an expert. Like I say, I don't even have a qualification in it yet. But I have a lot of years of lived experience of being around toxic people, specifically parents, specifically my mother. She's no longer here, and it may be a horrible thing to hear me say, but I think the world's a better place without her, because I saw firsthand and felt firsthand just how fucking evil and toxic and manipulative and narcissistic she was. I don't hate my mother. I feel nothing for her. She was just a negative influence on my whole life, and she doesn't deserve to have any of my emotions. She was a very ill woman, but she knew exactly what she was doing to me. And when she deliberately pushed me down the stairs when I was 4 or 5 years old, that, when I look back, was probably the biggest bloody warning sign I could ever have. And when I think back to the things she did and said to me afterwards over the years, they were really, really cruel things that she did and said to me. So I still have issues, and guess who had to figure out I had these issues? Yeah, that's right, me, because I was getting no help or support from the criminal justice system, the mental health system, the NHS. I was getting help from nobody, so I had to rely on myself again. Life experiences is absolutely the best education, Kaz. You're 100% correct. There is no better form of education than lived experience. So I intend to use my own personal experiences to teach you what sort of behaviors to look out for. And I believe wholeheartedly that it is every adult on this planet's responsibility to protect children in any way we can, whether it's our own children or somebody else's children. They deserve our protection because they are the future of our species. And while we are allowing these scumbags to do horrible things to children and get away with it, and not just children, I'm talking about teenagers, you know, young adults, vulnerable adult, anybody that is going to harm a vulnerable person, whether it be a child or a vulnerable disabled adult, you're a scumbag, in my opinion. You are an absolute piece of scum, and you'll get the same treatment as I would give the dog crap that I step in. You will be scraped off the bottom of my shoe and never thought of again, because you don't deserve any type of emotion from me. You will get anger, yes, because you're a scumbag, especially when you're harming children. So this is the reason why I'm doing these videos, because I don't feel there's enough education out there, for number one, to figure out the type of person you're dealing with. And it certainly doesn't seem to be on our government's priority list to protect children. They're too busy locking up people and putting them in prison for Facebook posts and making comments on YouTube, when really I think our police resources could be better off used to getting these wrong ones off the street, and protecting our youngsters. So this is my attempt at educating as many people as I can as to what to look out for. And I don't think I did a bad job in my first video, my first live today. I didn't cover as much as I'd like to, but I kind of buggered it up today. But it's live. I can't take it back. It is what it is. And what you see is what you get. If I balls it up, I balls it up. It's as simple as that. I don't know how to use editing suites. I was going to be taught, but they never did. Hence why I left the community that I left, but that's another story. I've had to make an apology for that, because I said some things that I really shouldn't have said. So I felt I had to make a public apology. The comments I made were public, so my apology should be public. So that's what I did. I will always own what I've done, said. I always mean what I say, certainly at the time. And there's a lot of what I did say that I still mean, but I shouldn't have said it, and I was wrong. So I felt that the people involved deserved an apology. So that's why I have an apology video up, and that is why it's going to stay up. It's going to stay up because I want it to stay up, because I believe that if you have done something wrong, the best way to deal with it is to own it, accept it, apologize, make it right, and move on. And that's it. Thank you, Kaz. Thank you, Don. I really appreciate your comments. I do try and be as informative as I can. I try and keep my own opinions out of it. But unfortunately, because I'm not qualified yet, it's nothing but opinion. But all I can say is it's opinion shared by every other statement analyst on the planet that I know. So I'm not a million miles away from the truth, am I? If everybody else agrees. And when I'm getting members of the RCMP even agreeing with what I'm saying, and investigators, then I know I'm on the right track. So that fills me with plenty of confidence. And I got a lovely comment from Deception Detective after my very first live appearance on Project Rook. I've got to thank Ron Swanson for that. He gave me my break, and gave me a platform to share my knowledge. And I've followed that on with my own channel. And it is literally, my channel is here to educate and nothing else. So changes will be made, and I will still be making videos, but I won't be doing any more lives tonight because it's now 20 to 10 and we've been going for 2.25 hours already. And I haven't covered half of the stuff I want to cover. So I'll have to decide on a time, but there will be another live probably tomorrow. At least one, I would imagine. But there's going to be a series of videos dedicated to educating you on psychopaths, abusers, and predators, the behaviors, the linguistics, the language, and the words, everything about them, and how to tell whether you're dealing with a psychopath, abuser, or a predator. A lot of it is going to be based on statement analysis. An awful lot of it is going to be based on personal experience. And the rest is going to be based on what I've learned, read, and been taught. And Kaz is right. You've got a good point. Other opinions give us something else to think about. And any of you that are interested in autism, I have a theory of my own about autism. And I will go into detail at some other point on that. But I have my own theory on autism. I think it's an evolutionary jump. Personally, I think that's what it's pointing at, and I'll explain that at a later date. In the meantime, much love to my audience. Thank you very much for coming and supporting the channel. Really appreciate your time. I know that you could have been doing anything else, as Justin says very well. You could be anywhere else in the world doing anything else, but you chose to be here. So I'm so thankful that we've had the audience that we've had, and I hope that more people watch this and learn, so we can keep our kids safe, because it seems to me we can't trust the powers that be to keep our children safe. So that responsibility has unfortunately had to fall on the shoulders of not just the parents and the family members, but of every living adult on the planet. I believe it is every one of us. It's all our responsibility to ensure the safety and the correct education of the very little people that are going to be the future of our species. So yes, that's how we're going to move forward. I hope you've enjoyed it. Kaz, I hope you do like the channel, because you'll only ever get either 100% fact, truth, or my honest opinion, and you're nothing else. And I hope yes, thank you so much, Justin. Yes, Justin from Clutch Them Pearls. Go sign up to Clutch Them Pearls. I beg you, just if you've never watched one of Justin's lives, go and watch one. Even if you're not interested in the case, go and watch him, because he is very good. Justin is very much like me. He's like a dog with a bone. When he gets his teeth into something, he will not leave it alone. And he brings light to some very disturbing cases, usually involving youngsters or vulnerable people. He works very hard to make this knowledge as public to as wider audience as possible. So I would really appreciate it if you went over and gave Justin a look on his one of his lives, or go watch some of his videos, leave a like and subscribe. It's not going to do you any harm to subscribe. It helps his channel, and he does so much. He puts so much work into what he does, and I love him to bits. I've got a lot of time for Justin. So thank you all for being here. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've gone on a little bit longer than I thought, and covered a little bit less. But as I say, I'm quite new to this. So Kaz, have a great night as well yourself, sweetheart. Thank you for coming. Don, thank you for coming. Jay Scott, thank you for popping in and showing a little bit of love and support. She's another one you need to go and see, Guilty of Crime. Go and watch some of the videos. She does a really deep dive into the Stephen Stearns case. I find that one really hard, because every time I look at that piece of muck, I actually just want to kick his teeth down his throat. So that's how he makes me feel, knowing what he did. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to have to leave it there, and at some time tomorrow there'll be a further dive into the same subject. And I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves and learned something. So on that note, I am going to say good night. Much love all. Stay safe. And most of all, be nice to each other. And remember, our children are the future of our species. They are the most important people on this planet. Good night all. Much love.